The email I received from my boss, a man named Marcus, who had always insisted we were like family, was short, cold, and utterly devastating. It read, "Effective immediately. Your position is being made redundant. We are transitioning your key responsibilities to a new, highly efficient, and cost-effective AI platform. Your severance package details are attached. Thank you for your service." It hit me like a physical blow. After 5 years of pouring my blood, sweat, and frankly, my entire life into that marketing firm, after countless late nights securing new deals and managing our most complicated accounts, I was being replaced by a string of code. A robot, a glorified spreadsheet. The irony was suffocating. I, a human being with creativity, nuance, and a personal relationship with every major client, was disposable because an algorithm could do most of my job for less money. But what they didn't factor in was the one client that wasn't just a number to me. The client that was the lifeblood of that entire firm. Zenith Tech. They didn't factor in the hours I spent not just doing the work, but understanding the quirks and demands of CEO Evelyn Reed, and they certainly didn't factor in the depth of my resentment. So, I took him down. I took his biggest client, the account that represented nearly 40% of his company's annual revenue. And I walked straight out the door with it. I did it not just to survive, but to prove a point that humans, real relationships, and hard-earned expertise still matter more than a cold, calculating machine. I need to know from all of you watching this right now, was I wrong for gutting my former boss's company like that? For taking the one thing that kept his lights on after he discarded me like yesterday's trash? Tell me if you would have done the same thing to really understand why I did what I did. You have to know a little about me and about Marcus. I started at Synergy Marketing right out of college. I was young, ambitious, and frankly naive about the corporate world. Marcus, the CEO, was the classic entrepreneurial type, loud, charismatic, constantly talking about disruption and innovation. In the beginning, he seemed like a mentor. He praised my work ethic, gave me opportunities, and genuinely made me feel like an indispensable part of his growing empire. I started in a junior role, but within 3 years, I had worked my way up to senior account strategist. My specialty was taking the difficult clients, the ones that chewed up and spat out other strategists, and turning them into long-term, profitable partners. This is where Evelyn Reed and Zenith Tech came in. Zenith Tech wasn't just a client. They were a behemoth in the cybersecurity space, and their account was notoriously demanding. Their previous agencies had failed spectacularly because they tried to treat Evelyn like a generic sales pipeline entry. But Evelyn, a formidable woman who built her company from the ground up, valued personal connection and absolute competence above all else. When Synergy first pitched Zenith Tech, it was my presentation, my detailed research into their company culture, and my promise to be their single point of contact for everything. That sealed the deal. Marcus knew it too. He celebrated me openly, gave me a significant bonus, and always introduced me as the Zenith Whisperer. For the next 2 years, I lived and breathed Zenith Tech. I was on call 24/7. I knew Evelyn's favorite coffee order, a double espresso with a tiny splash of almond milk. No sugar, and I knew the exact tone she used when she was serious versus when she was just brainstorming. Our relationship was professional, yes, but it was built on mutual respect and trust that went far beyond what any AI could replicate. I didn't just manage her campaigns. I anticipated her needs before she even voiced them. I would frequently get emails from her that simply read, "You nailed it again," which was the highest compliment she ever gave. Meanwhile, back at Synergy, Marcus was becoming obsessed with the concept of automation. It started subtly. He brought in consultants who talked endlessly about optimizing efficiency and reducing human error. We all noticed the change. Team meetings shifted from creative brainstorming to discussions about quarterly metrics and tool integration. Marcus started investing huge amounts of company capital into developing proprietary AI tools. His goal, he made clear, was to build a self-driving marketing agency. He'd walk through the office saying, "The future is lean, people. The future is automatic." I tried to argue with him, pointing out that in our specific niche, bespoke B2B marketing clients pay a premium for human expertise and the personal touch. Marcus, I remember telling him after one particularly frustrating meeting, "Evelyn Reed doesn't want to talk to a chatbot. She wants to talk to me." He just smiled. That cold CEO smile he'd perfected. "That's what you think, darling. But imagine the profit margins if we cut out the human labor cost entirely. That's a game changer." I saw the writing on the wall, but I desperately hoped my proven value, especially with Zenith Tech, would make me the exception. I was wrong. The email landed on a Tuesday morning. The timing felt deliberate, like a cheap shot. I remember staring at the screen, reading the word redundant over and over again. Not fired for incompetence. Not laid off due to poor performance. Redundant, my entire professional identity. Reduced to an unnecessary component in Marcus's shiny new machine. The anger was immediate and all-consuming, quickly followed by a deep, hollow panic. I had a mortgage, bills, and a career I thought was secure. I immediately went to Marcus's office. His assistant, Sarah, who looked genuinely distraught, tried to stop me, but I walked right past her. Marcus was sitting behind his enormous mahogany desk, looking annoyingly smug, sipping a green smoothie. "I expected you'd come," he said, not even looking up. "Look, it's not personal. It's just business. We've managed to train the new Synergy AI 3.0 model on the entire 5 years of Zenith Tech data. It can generate initial strategy drafts, manage reporting, and handle communication with 85% efficiency at 10% of your cost. Efficiency isn't everything, Marcus. What about the 15%? What about the relationship? What about the time I spent troubleshooting when your efficient server crashed last year? Does the AI have a memory of that?" I was shaking. He finally looked up, his expression hardening. "That's sentimental nonsense, and sentiment doesn't scale. You've been a good worker, but you're a luxury we can no longer afford. The severance is generous. Take it and move on." It was the way he dismissed me as a good worker who was now an unnecessary luxury that snapped something inside me. It wasn't just losing my job. It was the utter lack of respect for the years of dedication. I walked out of that office not with a whimper of defeat, but with a cold, clear strategic purpose forming in my mind. He thought he could replace me with code. Fine. I would prove that code was worthless without the data and the client relationship that I exclusively held. My first move was subtle. I didn't delete files or crash the system, because I'm not an idiot and I wanted no legal recourse against me. Instead, I methodically reviewed every single recent communication with Evelyn. I had an emergency contact number for her that Marcus didn't even know existed, her private cell, which she only gave to people she truly trusted. I knew I had a small window. Marcus was planning to introduce the AI to the Zenith team the following week, framing it as an upgrade and a new frontier. My window was before that meeting. I went home, ignored the severance package details, and started drafting my own proposal. I called an old contact, a friend who had recently started a small, high-end consulting collective focused on personalized client service. Let's call him David. I explained my situation, leaving out the specifics of my imminent plan, and simply said I was ready to go freelance and needed a structure to present to a very important prospect. David, sensing the urgency and the potential of the client I vaguely alluded to, agreed instantly. I spent the next 48 hours working harder than I ever had for Synergy, but this time, it was for me. I built a bespoke proposal for Zenith Tech. It wasn't about flashy AI tools. It was about hyper-personalized strategy. leveraging my intimate knowledge of their internal struggles, their competitive landscape, and Evelyn's personal goals, things no automated system could ever know. I structured the fee to be competitive, but critically, it guaranteed that Evelyn would work only with me. I was the product, not a tool. Then, I sent the text message to Evelyn's private number, the one Marcus didn't know. "Evelyn, this is my name. I need to speak with you urgently and discreetly about the future of our partnership. It's critical. Are you free for a private call at 8 a.m. tomorrow?" She replied instantly, "8 a.m. works. What's going on?" So that's the situation I was in. I had poured 5 years of my life into a company only to be tossed out like garbage and replaced by a line of code. My only leverage was a client relationship I had painstakingly built. And now I was about to risk everything: my professional reputation, my potential severance, maybe even legal trouble on a single 8 a.m. phone call. I knew the moment I told Evelyn what Marcus was planning, there would be no going back. It was a high-stakes gamble between staying silent, taking the money, and walking away, or firing my own first shot in a corporate war. Before I tell you what happened next, and trust me, the details of that phone call and Marcus's reaction are absolutely priceless, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have played it safe, or would you have gone for the jugular? I need to know. At 7:58 a.m. the next day, I was sitting in my living room. The newly printed proposal for the My Name Consulting Collective spread out on the table. My heart was pounding like a drum solo. At 8 a.m. sharp, Evelyn's name flashed on my phone. I took a deep breath and answered. "Evelyn, thank you for taking this call. I'll get straight to the point because I know your time is valuable." I started, keeping my voice steady and professional despite the earthquake happening inside me. "As of yesterday, I am no longer with Synergy Marketing. Marcus replaced me with an internal AI platform." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end, followed by a deadly silence. "He did what?" she finally demanded, her tone shifting instantly from professional to icy rage. "He made my role redundant, explaining that the new AI trained on my past work with Zenith could handle my responsibilities at a fraction of the cost." I let that hang in the air for a moment. "And when was he planning on telling me about this upgrade?" she asked, the sarcasm dripping from the word upgrade. "He was planning on presenting the transition to your team next week, framing it as an innovation to streamline operations." I knew exactly how Evelyn operated. She hated being treated like a fool or an afterthought. Marcus's clandestine, cost-cutting move, which he had planned to spring on her after the fact, was the biggest insult he could have delivered. I hadn't just given her information. I had given her leverage and, more importantly, respect. "Unbelievable," she muttered. "After everything you've done for us, that man has no loyalty." This was my opening. "Evelyn, that's precisely why I called. Synergy, with or without its fancy AI, can no longer guarantee the dedicated, personal, and human expertise that Zenith Tech demands. I know your business better than anyone, certainly better than a machine. I know your current pain points are not solvable by a script. I am ready to offer you that exclusive, high-level service directly through a new, lean consulting collective. I've prepared a detailed proposal outlining how I can personally transition the entire account and immediately resume service without any interruption, at a competitive rate that reflects the absence of the overhead you were paying Synergy for." I then walked her through the key points of the proposal, the deep dive analysis I had done on her Q4 goals, the strategic pivots she had mentioned offhand, and the specific personal touchpoints I would maintain. Evelyn didn't interrupt. When I finished, the silence was agonizing, but it felt different this time. Not angry, but thoughtful. Finally, she spoke. "Send me the proposal immediately, and you need to come in for a meeting this afternoon. I want to look you in the eye and discuss this." Don't worry about synergy. I'll handle Marcus. That was all I needed. The rest of the day was a blur. I immediately emailed the document, and by 3 p.m., I was sitting in the opulent lobby of Zenith Tech, waiting for the meeting that would change my life. The meeting went better than I could have dreamed. Evelyn was furious with Marcus for his duplicity and his assumption that she would simply accept a machine replacing the person who ran her most critical campaigns. She saw his move not as innovation, but as arrogance and poor judgment. By 5 p.m., I had a signed agreement in principle, securing Zenith Tech as my first and very enormous client. The fee alone was enough to launch my new venture and keep me financially stable for the next year. The ink was barely dry when Evelyn picked up her desk phone and called Marcus. She put it on speaker. What followed was the sweetest sound I have ever heard. "Marcus, it's Evelyn Reed. I'm calling to inform you that Zenith Tech is terminating our contract with Synergy Marketing. Effective immediately." Marcus, clearly caught completely off guard, stammered Evelyn. "What? But why? Is it about the new AI integration?" "I assure you, it's a massive step forward for efficiency." Evelyn cut him off with a voice of pure steel. "No, Marcus. It's about respect. You replaced the only person on your team who understood my business with a chatbot and thought I wouldn't notice. Or wouldn't care. That shows a profound lack of judgment and a fundamental misunderstanding of what we pay for. We don't pay for efficiency, Marcus. We pay for competence and trust. And you've lost both. I'm happy to say that the person who does have our trust, my name, will be continuing to manage our account directly. You can have your AI. I'll take the human." She hung up without another word. The look on her face as she turned to me was one of grim satisfaction. "Congratulations, my name. You just got your old job back, but this time you work for yourself." I left Zenith Tech that evening feeling 10 feet tall. I drove straight back to Synergy Marketing. I walked into the empty office and straight to Marcus's door. He was pacing, his face a mask of pale fury. He saw me, and his eyes narrowed. You did this, didn't you? You violated your NDA. You leveraged confidential information." I held up my hand, cutting him off, a gesture he often used on me. "I did nothing of the sort, Marcus. I leveraged 5 years of hard work. I leveraged a relationship of trust you were too blind and arrogant to value. And I leveraged the fact that your cost-cutting innovation was an insult to your biggest client. I called Evelyn before she was officially introduced to your AI. That's strategy, not a crime. I placed his severance check, which I had purposefully not cashed, on his desk. Keep your money, Marcus. I don't need it. I have Zenith Tech, and I think that should just about cover the cost of all that lovely, efficient AI you invested in, don't you?" I turned and walked out, leaving him standing there amidst the wreckage of his own making. The aftermath was swift and brutal for Synergy. Without Zenith Tech, the firm lost credibility and was in immediate financial jeopardy. Other clients, hearing whispers of Marcus's AI obsession and seeing his inability to retain his top talent, began to jump ship. Marcus tried to sue, of course, sending threatening legal letters. But Evelyn, being Evelyn, had her own legal team shut him down immediately. I had only offered my personal services after I was officially terminated, and I never misused proprietary tools. I just used my own brain and my personal contact list. Marcus learned a very expensive lesson that day. You can automate tasks, but you can't automate relationships, and you certainly can't automate trust. I, meanwhile, have had to hire 3 people for the collective, all of whom specialize in personalized high-touch client service. Zenith Tech is thriving, and Evelyn is my biggest champion. The new business is booming, and I've never been happier or more secure in my career. It's been over a year since that fateful Tuesday, and I look back on that experience with a strange mix of satisfaction and clarity. Marcus thought he could treat people as interchangeable parts in his corporate machine, easily swapped out for a cheaper digital alternative. But the truth is, the human element, the empathy, the intuition, the ability to read a room or a client's mood, the years spent building genuine rapport, that's the real value. Especially in a world saturated with automation. My story isn't just about revenge. It's a warning shot to every executive who thinks that efficiency is the sole measure of success. Sometimes, the most inefficient things, like a personal phone call or a handwritten note, are the things that build the foundations strong enough to walk out the door with a multi-million-dollar client. I stood up for myself and for the value of human expertise, and I won. So, what are your final thoughts on this whole mess? Were my actions justified, or did I cross a line? Like this video if you were on my side, fighting back against the machine. Subscribe for more stories like this, where the little guy gets their ultimate revenge. And share your final thoughts on Marcus and his fancy AI in the comments section below. I'll see you all in the next story.